Welcome to this explainer of our source material. Today, we're looking at one of the most profound, honestly one of the most difficult mysteries of the entire human experience. I'm talking about suffering. We're going to completely bypass any sort of agenda today. Instead, we're jumping straight into this fascinating historical narrative from the book of John, chapter 9. It's a text that presents a total paradigm shift. It completely changes how we view our lowest, most painful moments, and reveals how those very moments might actually serve a much, much higher purpose. Okay, let's dive into this. The narrative starts with Jesus and his disciples just walking along, right? And they encounter a man who had been blind since birth. Immediately, the disciples ask a question that perfectly captures a universal human instinct. They ask, who is to blame for this suffering? Was it this man or his parents? It's like when they see a man in pain, they don't just see a person, they see a theological puzzle. They instinctively want to find a root cause, trace the error, and basically assign blame.
And that brings us right to section 1, the question of suffering. Who is to blame?
You know that ancient instinct to assign blame for hardship? That is something that absolutely still plagues us today. It creates this heavy, dark storm cloud of guilt, fear, and despair. But look at the stark contrast we have here. While the disciples immediately see a problem to solve and a reason to point fingers, Jesus looks at the exact same man and sees a person to love. He completely ignores their game of whodunit. And honestly, this challenges us right out of the gate. We have to examine our own first reactions. When you encounter someone else's hardship, are you stepping back to analyze a problem, or are you stepping forward to genuinely love a person?
This leads us directly into section 2, reframing the why with a powerful counter-narrative.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real inciting incident of our narrative. Jesus answers his disciples by saying that actually neither the man nor his parents sinned to cause this blindness. Instead, he says, this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. I mean, wow. This is a profound reframing. Suffering isn't necessarily some kind of punishment for sin, rather it's a deliberate stage, a literal platform where God's power and divine glory can be vividly revealed to the whole world.
So the crucial point is understanding what the text actually means by the works of God. It defines it as divine power and character revealed in a person's life, actively transforming brokenness into a completely new, joyful life. Remember, suffering is never ever wasted when it becomes the very catalyst for experiencing these new realities of God's love and mercy. The brokenness, essentially, is the canvas for the masterpiece.
Now, we're moving into section 3, a risky step of faith, which requires actionable obedience.
Because think about it. Moving out of darkness and stepping into this divine light, it isn't just some passive experience that washes over you. Jesus does something highly unusual here. He makes mud with his own saliva, places it on the blind man's eyes, and tells him to go wash in the Pool of Siloam. Just imagine the vulnerability required here. The blind man is taking literal, incredibly risky steps of faith while still engulfed in complete darkness, totally trusting the word of a perfect stranger. He makes that vulnerable trip, washes the mud away, and the result is just a stupendous miracle, the total creation of full physical sight.
Notice the fascinating motif repeated in the sources here. The healed man instantly becomes Exhibit A of God's glorious work. He is no longer just a guy begging on the street corner. No, he is now an active, walking, completely verifiable testimony of divine power. His physically transformed life is literally the ultimate proof of the light breaking through the darkness.
And we hit the narrative climax here in section 4, the cost of the light, which brings immediate division and tension.
You'd think everyone in the community would be absolutely thrilled for this man, right? I mean, it makes sense. But loyalty to Jesus actually creates immediate division in a sin-darkened world. Why? Because the light exposes things that people would much prefer to keep hidden. Look at these very real risks of faith. The religious leaders, the Pharisees, are absolutely furious because Jesus healed this man on the Sabbath, violating their strict rules. Suddenly, the healed man faces severe social and religious exclusion. He has to confront powerful leaders, and he loses all of his safety and comfort. The threat of being thrown out of the synagogue was so terrifying that even his own parents were paralyzed by fear. They refused to stand by him just to avoid being ostracized. Yet, while his parents retreat into the shadows, the formerly blind man's courage only grows.
The Pharisees interrogate him, they bully him, and they hurl these fiery threats at him, trying to get him to denounce Jesus. But the man leans on the undeniable power of a really simple personal testimony. He looks right at these powerful leaders and tells them, "One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." It is incredibly powerful because, let's face it, you simply cannot argue with a transformed life. He boldly defends the truth against the most educated men of his day with absolutely nothing but the facts of his own lived experience.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the ultimate role reversal taking place here. The religious leaders, who claim to see everything clearly, are actually trapped in spiritual darkness. It's a darkness characterized by pride, fear, rigid legalism, and guilt. They willfully reject the light standing right in front of them. On the flip side, the cast-out man, who started his entire life in physical darkness, is now walking entirely in the light. He's marked by honesty, humility, incredible courage, and a genuinely deep grasp of the truth.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our resolution in Section 5, becoming a living testimony by prioritizing God's work.
So what actually happens when a person decides to step fully into the light, regardless of the heavy social cost and the loss of their entire community? Well, the conclusion in our source text is incredibly clear. The rewards are staggeringly transformative. Even though the man was literally cast out and lost his earthly community, he gained absolutely every good thing. He got to experience divine power firsthand. He found a fail-proof remedy for the paralyzing fear that trapped his parents. He gained true spiritual vision, total freedom from guilt and shame, and honestly, the ultimate honor of standing with Christ. In the narrative, Jesus actually seeks him out after he's expelled, and the man finally gets to see his Savior's face, both physically and spiritually.
As we look at the entire sweep of this incredible source text, we really have to connect this historical narrative directly back to ourselves today. Let me ask you, where do you honestly see yourself in this story? When faced with the blinding reality of the light, do you act like the fearful parents, just kind of hiding in the shadows to protect your social standing? Are you like the rigid Pharisees, pridefully refusing to admit your limitations and your need for help? Or are you like the courageous blind man, totally willing to boldly state what the light has done for you, regardless of who is listening?
And this brings us to our final provocative thought. This entire narrative hinges on one massive paradigm shift. Suffering and brokenness aren't just senseless pain. They aren't cosmic punishments. They are the very stage where the works of God might be beautifully displayed. So, will you risk stepping out of the darkness to let your life display divine glory? Think about that as you reflect on this amazing text. Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me, and I genuinely hope it fundamentally reframes how you look at the greatest challenges in your own life.